Hello BookTube, I'm Shawn the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am kicking off another video discussion with Doris of Oldie Books for the Faber stories released this year in honor of Faber's 90th anniversary. This one is Alan Bennett's The Shielding of Mrs. Forbes. I have read Alan Bennett's novel about the Queen and her reading called The Uncommon Reader, and I quite enjoyed it. It was a light-hearted, kind of respectful satire of the Queen discovering novels and becoming a deeper person. I thought it was fun. Beyond that, don't really remember much of it, having read it a couple years ago. He's probably most famous for his plays. The Madness of King George was the movie, the play was The Madness of George III, and many others. I don't remember if I've ever seen that one. I've always wanted to see The History Boys, which is a very gay play. And this short story is one of the two novellas that was collected in the collection called Smut. I didn't discover that until I'd read the first 19 and a bit pages of this, but it is collected in that collection of novellas. Alan Bennett is really interesting. I didn't know as much about him as I do now, having spent part of the morning reading up on him. He's 85 years old, still very active. Came out of the closet about a decade or so ago. He I think he identified as bisexual, but was kind of quiet about it until he was in his 70s or something. He's been partnered with the same guy for 20 years, and that ended his heterosexual common law relationship with a woman who died in 2009, and all the three of them became very great friends towards the end of her life. One of the things that I loved learning about Alan Bennett was that he wrote a play. I think it started out as an essay, and then it became a play, and then it became a movie about a woman. I can't remember the title right now, but about a woman who was living in a van in his driveway for 10 or 15 years. And he said in the article, in an interview that I read today, that everybody thought he was such a humanitarian for keeping this kind of mentally ill, very colorfully charactered woman living in his driveway in her van for all those years. But he said his study where he does all his writing overlooks the street, and she used to park on the street, and people used to abuse her and try to get her to move, and the police would come, and it was causing such a commotion that he invited her to park her van and live in his driveway because it was more peaceful for him as a writer looking out the window. So he said, don't think I'm too compassionate. Anyway, that was stage play and movie starred Dame Maggie Smith, so I definitely want to find that and watch it. He comes from a poor working class background and has always been very grateful, committed socialist, labor supporter, likes Jeremy Corbyn. Maybe he's gotten over that by now. Here I am weighing into British politics because of the opportunities he's been given all his life by the government. He's studied and taught at Oxford before realizing that he was much more into the theatre, and then became a playwright, and he's written novels and short stories and plays and this and that and this and that. Just a fascinating guy. I'm not sure about this story, Doris. Are you? I've read up until the very top of page 20, and I find much of it really funny. The mother, Mrs. Forbes, is hilarious, and the relationship between she and her husband is quite comical. But she's so put out about her new soon-to-be daughter-in-law. She doesn't like her name, Betty, and she doesn't like that she's not nearly as attractive as her gorgeous son, and the things that she goes on about was really entertaining. I'm not sure that is what I look for in my short fiction or fiction period, is to be giggling, but I certainly was through much of this. The father is kind of mysterious and quiet, and here's just a snippet of the conversation that just made me bust a gut. Because he had just finished saying to her that he's pretty sure that her name is Betty Green, the fiancée, and the Green is with an E on it. And then Mrs. Forbes, of the title, his wife, replies, I wouldn't want my son marrying a Catholic. For Graham's mother, there was little to choose between Jews and Catholics. The Jews had holidays that turned up out of the blue, and the Catholics had children in much the same way. "I suppose she could be a Catholic," said Graham's father. "I could see her as a nun." The idea seemed to please him, but it didn't please his wife. "Just our luck she missed her vocation. I mean, face facts, Edward. He's very good-looking." "She isn't. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership. Good-looking people marry good-looking people, and the others take what's left." "There's always love," said Mr. Forbes lamely. "Love," snorted Mrs. Forbes. "Of course there's love. She's in love with him. Who wouldn't be? But what does he see in her?" "She may have money. A hole in her cardigan and the same tights 3 days running? I've seen no sign of it." "Her parents are dead." "That doesn't stop her going to the dry cleaners. If only she'd had some parents, we'd have a better idea." "She does have parents," Mr. Forbes pointed out patiently. "Everyone has parents. It's just that hers are both dead." "So she claims," said Mrs. Forbes. "They probably took one look and abandoned her on a hillside somewhere, the way they do in stories. Orphans, I don't trust them. Didn't we see something like that at the Playhouse?" And it goes from there. So, I mean, it's funny. I'm not sure what else is here after 20 pages. It's a 70-page, very short novella or long short story. And we get a gay subplot. I don't know if that's going to become the main plot. And we find out that the good-looking son Graham is not 100% devoted to his fiancée on the night before their wedding. And that's all I'm going to say. But I'm not sure if I don't think I'm going to love this story. I might like it or I might hate it. Depends where it goes. If it's all kept on the surface just for giggles, just for laughs, I don't think I'll like it very much. But I'm dying to hear what you, Doris, are making of it so far.
Shawn, I've read 20 pages of this, and the only reason I haven't finished is because I had to film this video with you. I am laughing so much reading this book. I have loved every minute of it. I did get to page 16 and had the old eyebrow lift moment. Typically, I do not like infidelity at all. But I just, had that eyebrow lift and then moved on and kept right on laughing. So, hopefully I will find my moral compass once again. No, really, hopefully the book will end well, and it will end well. But at this point, I'm not sure if I care. As soon as I got done reading the 20 pages, I looked up Alan Bennett on Goodreads and have written down three of his books I want to read: The Uncommon Reader and The Lady in the Van that you mentioned, as well as Talking Heads, which is a series of monologues that he filmed for the BBC. He's so... Goodreads said he was a mischievous wit. He's so naughty, but in a classy way, so it doesn't offend me. I'm laughing, Shawn. So yeah, I too must end with a quote. So you've obviously established that the mother, what's her name? Mrs. Barnes, I think? No, wait, I don't remember her name. Mrs. Forbes, sorry. All those silent E words. Anyway, she obviously wears the pants in this family, so I found this little excerpt quite humorous. It's quite humorous. Mr. Forbes's trousers now arrived, and with them a greater degree of parental boldness. He was having to share a dressing room with his son as they, get ready for the wedding, and he was quite disconcerted by that. But anyway, Mr. Forbes's trousers now arrived, and with them a greater degree of parental boldness. "If you're getting married in church, Graham, the vicar likes you to pretend to believe in God. Everyone knows this is a formality. It's like the air hostess going through the safety drill. God's in his heaven and your life jacket's under the seat. I don't see what that's got to do with whether we've done it or not. Done it. When you're as old as Kenan Mollison, Mr. Forbes said patiently, one of the few perks of the job is talking to young people about the sexual act. What in any other context would probably get him arrested in the vestry passes for spiritual advice. It must be a very depressing job, said Graham. Okay, I'm going to finish it now.
Page 34. If any precautions in the way of condoms and such like have gone unmentioned, that is a casualty of the storytelling. Though the slithering on of contraceptives has been elided in this narrative, in his premarital sexual sorties, Graham had been scrupulous never to omit this preliminary, even when giddier bedfellows mocked his circumspection. This, though, should have come as no surprise, as, however frantic the foreplay, the neat fashion in which Graham put his shoes by the bed with his socks tucked inside should have signaled that this was not exactly a free spirit. That is one of the puke-worthiest paragraphs about anything sexual, and if it doesn't win the bad sex rating prize, there is no God, there is no justice, and I could not progress beyond that abysmal, overly Latinate garbage dump of a paragraph, and so I did not finish. I have lost almost all respect for the man. Doris, I hope you made out better, because this was just tough.
Oh, Shawn, I'm sorry you didn't like it. I laughed. I thought it, not at that scene in particular. I just read that one as him showing the over meticulous nature of this character. But yeah, I'm afraid my halo has been permanently tarnished from this one because it was so scandalous. The twists and turns at the end were just fairly scandalous. One in particular. No, two in particular involving the parents. But yeah, I kind of read the character a little bit autobiographical with him, maybe, from the things you said earlier in the video. But anyway, yeah, I laughed a few times, I must admit. Anyway, on to the next one. Hopefully we'll both enjoy it.